Welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 9th of October, 2024, and this is the SIG Cloud Provider meeting. SIG Cloud Provider is a sub-project of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which basically means please treat everyone as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so. Please be kind to each other. And if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you. So I'm going to skip over the bug triage. We'll come back to that at the end. And I'll give a chance for the sub projects to give updates here. So if anybody has an update they would like to give, please raise your hand and we'll put it in here. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up, so we will move on to our regular agenda then. So I added a couple things here in the agenda. First of all, the code cleanup PR that I had posted last week, or the issue that I had posted, this one. Oh no, that's not it. Maybe, I didn't post a link to it. I posted the issue and it got merged. I put a PR, but it got merged. So thanks for everyone who kind of helped on that. I am now going to do some follow-up investigations because as I've been looking at the code, especially for the KCM, I can see that there's like an intertwining of the old cloud loops that don't do anything. They're like no-op loops at this point, and they're still in there. But if I take them out, everything breaks. So I'm trying to figure out like what can I take out without breaking everything. And if I can identify these as issues, I will open them up on KK as an issue, hopefully like, to help, I just create some opportunities for new contributors who wanted to try and fix some of these things. I won't just try and like fix them all at one go or something. But I think there's plenty of work to be done there. So yeah, most of it in KCM, but I think there's probably a little bit to do in kubelet and some to do in the kube API server as well. So does anybody have questions or comments about that topic? Okay, I will move on to the next topic then. So in preparation for the maintainer track talk that we're giving at KubeCon, I'm going to start drafting an enhancement for the test changes that I think, that I want to propose that we do. And this is going to be a centerpiece of the talk that we're giving, which is kind of like how we're going to build tests for the future of cloud providers. So I went, as a little background, I went to a SIG testing meeting last week to ask them, like, if I start to draft an enhancement, should I draft it in SIG testing or should I draft it in SIG Cloud Provider? And they actually wanted to know a little bit more about what was going on. And they had also mentioned that there's some other related work that's going on to kind of refactor some of the tests. So in the interest of that, I'm going to start as like a HackMD document. I'll start sketching out the enhancement there, and I will definitely share it with the SIG. And then also I'll send it out on the mailing list as well. So I'll send it to SIG testing mailing list and SIG Cloud Provider mailing list, just so that we can start getting some comments. And also because in the talk that we're giving, Bridget and I were talking, we thought it would be good to give a link to like the enhancement or a draft of the enhancement so people could start to read it and whatnot. So probably I'm hoping to get started on that this week, but it might not be for another week or two before that really gets going hardcore. So did any questions or comments about that topic?
Yes. Hi. My name is Morgan. I'm a new PM at Microsoft working under Bridget. I came by today, just like, what's going on. Could you elaborate on what type of testing you're referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually I could probably use some of the slides that we're putting together to help illustrate this. So currently in Kubernetes, right? We do testing of the cloud providers, right? And we only test the GCE cloud provider and the AWS cloud provider inside of there. And I think there's some Azure tests as well.
And is this
Those
like
are all linked in to the KK repo, and they have very specific implementations for each provider. Now, part of the work of moving all of the in-tree code to out of tree was we took all this provider specific code out of Kubernetes, and we moved it into these external repositories like Cloud Provider AWS, Cloud Provider Azure, et cetera.
Gotcha.
And so what's happening now is we've got this very specific code for like specific infrastructures in the KK testing, and we need to now think about removing that and creating a testing structure that would allow us to accommodate any of the cloud providers. And this is testing that's very specific to the cloud controller manager. So in specific, we're talking about the node lifecycle. We're talking about load balancer based services, potentially route information. So those are kind of the core tests that we want to do. And right now it's, you could imagine if you want to test the node lifecycle, you have to be able to set up a Kubernetes cluster, and then you have to automate removing the instance from the cloud, basically. So that's going to be different for every cloud that we do.
Yeah.
So what I'm proposing, and I guess anybody who watches this recording will get a preview of KubeCon. What I'm proposing is that we kind of set up a new structure for the tests where we have the KK repo, Kubernetes will contain test definitions, like what happens when you remove a node, et cetera.
Yeah.
And there will be an interface that each cloud provider would be responsible for implementing if they wanted to use those tests. So in the new structure, doing a cloud provider test would mean taking the test definitions from Kubernetes, taking the test implementation from the cloud provider, or really the interface implementation, and combining them together into one binary that is then run on a Kubernetes testing cluster that's being deployed to that infrastructure. So in the case of this example, we're talking about OpenStack. So you would take the cloud provider OpenStack repo, which would have a definition or have an implementation of the interface for the testing, and you would take the Kubernetes repo, you would build those together to create a binary, and then that binary would be run on top of or inside of an OpenStack Kubernetes cluster, and it would do all the testing of removing nodes, making sure that a load balancer service appears when you tell it to. So that's really the core of what we're talking about here. Does that answer your question, Morgan?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to start, Bridget and I are going to give the talk about this in about a month. And in between then, I'm going to start writing up like the description of how this should look as an enhancement. And I won't post it as a PR for an enhancement yet. I'm going to get some comments from SIG testing and hopefully from this SIG as well. So, be on the lookout. Hopefully that'll come up in the next couple weeks. Good question, though. Thank you, Morgan. Anyone else questions or comments on this topic? Okay. Well, we will move along then. So the other topic I posted here was about hacking on this blog post with Antonio. So, and I guess I can give a little preview. So Antonio and I, we've been talking recently about problems that people can run into when they deploy cloud controller managers, as external. And I think, for most of the audience here, especially, people who are representing cloud providers, we've all solved these solutions in different ways. But for a user who might be deploying their own Kubernetes, or for a new provider who's thinking about writing this, there are a couple gotchas or a couple tricky points that we want to highlight about deploying the cloud controllers and what that means. And so this is a blog post that Antonio and I started writing, where we talk about what is the problem, what did we do basically, and by extracting everything, what kind of problem does that create? And that's, kind of one of the main problems it can create is that you could, if you're trying to deploy your CCM and you're not tolerating the taint that it's supposed to clear, then it'll never get deployed, right? So that's kind of the basic problem. And that's what this diagram is kind of highlighting. And then as part of that, like I went through and Antonio and I went through just a bunch of different cloud providers and the way they're deployed in, Cluster API, on OpenShift, and KOps, in Gardener. I went through all the different repos that are available in Kubernetes and Kubernetes SIGs, just looking at everyone's manifests. Apologies, just I was just searching, you know. And we collected all that information here. And so now I'm getting to the point where I'm going to finish out these examples of the dependency problems, because the common one is the one I just talked about, where like your CCM doesn't tolerate the uninitialized taint or something. But there are more complicated bugs we've seen where, you know, sometimes people have the CCM set up and they aren't expecting it, but they depend on the CNI and the CNI is not doing it. So anyways, like I'm going to try and enumerate some of these, and then we're going to have a list of recommendations uh, for people who are deploying these. And I think, you know, Chris and I were kind of chatting about this as the meeting got started here. There's a lot of these things are very similar between all the different cloud providers. You want to enable host networking. You need to tolerate the uninitialized taint, you know, these kind of things. But we'll bring it together here as a blog post. So I'm hoping that this week I'm going to have the chance to finish kind of, I would like to format this into the way we want to see it in the blog post, and then I'll post it back into our SIG channel to get some reviews and whatnot. So maybe in a month or month and a half or so, we could have this in a shape where it's ready to be published. So yeah, that's kind of one of the other things that I've been looking at that I just wanted to give an update on. So are there any questions or comments about the blog? Okay, well, then that brings us to the end of the regular agenda. Were there any other topics that people wanted to add here that maybe they didn't get a chance to? And I would invite everyone to add yourself to the attending list if you feel so inclined. Joel, I'm going to add you since you know you and I are on the same team. Okay, no, and not seeing any hands going up or people unmuting, so I'm guessing.
Sorry, Mike. Couldn't figure out how to raise my hand on Zoom.
No worries, no worries. Go
I
ahead.
attempted to add this to the agenda, but I don't know if the Google Doc suggestion went through, but I am looking for another reviewer for this PR. I believe you already took a look at it. This is attempting to fix a bug that we've run into on EKS with the Cloud Node Lifecycle Controller. Essentially, the controller will just sometimes delete nodes in error when the EC2 APIs that it relies on are eventually consistent. So it's adding a config option. I think that's probably the most controversial part of this. The actual change is an if statement. But if I could get this merged upstream, it would be great. We have customers that are continuing to run into this. So.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up again, Carter. You know, it looked good to me, which is why I put the label on there. I'd be happy to approve it, but it seemed like there were some concerns from other folks there, and I just wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to kind of talk it out. In specific, yeah, I was curious to see if Tim or Antonio had any response. So I don't know, like, I think it's probably good for us to, you know, try and get this merged at some point, but maybe we need to ping people again.
Sure, I'll see if I can get Antonio to take a look at it.
I'm going to put a note here too, and I'll ping all the parties in it. So maybe that'll we can just keep like pinging, I guess.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not, you know, like I'm usually not the kind of person that likes to put LGTM and the approve on by myself. And especially since, like you're saying, this adds a config value and everything. Like,
yep.
I think, yeah, just for sanity's sake, I'd love to get one of the other folks to drop a label here as well.
Makes sense. Thanks.
All right, cool. Did anybody else have topics or things they wanted to bring up? Okay. Not seeing hands going up, not seeing people unmuting. So let's take a look at the open issues here just to see if there's anything that's come up recently. Looks like not. I know we looked at this last time, and I think this is in the hands of the Google folks at this point. Yeah. Although, why did it not take the triage? Why did it not take triage accepted? Did I do this wrong again? Okay. I always apologies to everyone. I'm terrible with process stuff, and I always get it wrong. So sometimes it takes twice to try it. Okay. Well, I guess might as well take a look at the test grid real quickly just to see if things are looking terrible or not. Nice. This is what we like to see, all green. Okay, cool. Well, unless folks have anything pressing that they would like to bring up, I think we can take back about 40 minutes of our day here. So I will give folks a last chance. Going once, going twice. The raise hand button is under reactions. All right, going 3 times. Thanks for coming out, everyone, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks.
Thanks, everyone.